podcast. I'm your host, Ivory Hunter, and today is our second episode. And we have been trying to work out the kinks, but we are officially going live today. And I am bringing on, and I'm honored to bring on my very first guest, my good friend from back in high school. His name is Ray Seifert, and he is going to tell us testimony. And quite frankly, that's what the B principle is about. It's about men being transparent. It's about men being vulnerable and telling our stories. It's about healing. And just to give you a little recap on what the V Principle is, it's a book that I have out now available on Amazon. And I wrote this book because I am a former womanizer. Or if a person is alcoholic, do they say a former alcoholic? No, they say I'm an alcoholic. So I guess I'm a womanizer, but I am a person that is aware of that. And I think that's the key, the awareness. A lot of us are just, living life and not acknowledging the fact that we are doing damage to others and ourselves. So the V principle was created. And if you can look at this book and you can catch a visual of the V, on the left side of the V, it represents chasing. A lot of men, we spend our lives chasing. I wasted a lot of years chasing women, chasing sex. But ultimately, what I was chasing was validation. I was filling up my emptiness using other people, not because I was evil, because I was broken, because that's what I knew. My imprints growing up from a family full of womanizers, getting molested when I was younger, it started early on. And this is something that I am not proud to talk about, but I know that is something that's important. So if my mistakes, my mishaps can help others, then I'm grateful to be able to start this movement, this V principle. On the right side of it is wasting. And this is where, you know, emotional debt is accrued, And when I say wasting, a lot of times we know. And this book and this movement is made for men, but it's respected by women. It's actually made for women because people can all you benefit from the V principle and understanding when we're caught in the V trap. The right side of the V is wasting. We've all been in that situation where we have met a person and told them that we're not interested in having a serious relationship, so we call those situationships. Usually most people accept those, and that's just breadcrumbing. Most people just say, okay, I'm cool with that, but deep down inside, when somebody wants something more than what you want, and you go forward anyway. And when you do that, you accrue emotional debt. And I want to say emotional debt is essentially karma, because I've done it a lot. It's karma. I created a lot of karma in my life. And by making selfish decisions that come from a broken place. And I knew going forward when I did this podcast, it was going to be hard. When I created this V principle, it was going to be hard because I knew there's a lot of people who watch my content, who know me, who know my past, who know my history, and they're probably like, man, shut up, Ivy, shut up, Sab, and I get that. And I understand that. And I'm willing to take the smoke to start something new, to start something different because it's never too late to change. When you waste somebody's time, like Bob Marley used to say, the most cowardly thing a man can do is awaken a woman's heart without intentions on loving her. And that's what I did for years. I did that for years and I repeated this cycle. And it all started younger. When I was a kid, I was molested. And I talked about that in the first episode. And I'm not going to go too deep into that because ultimately I don't want to bring back those feelings and evoke feelings for others, that might not be ready to deal with that. But that was my imprint. And then coming from a family of womanizers, and, that's what I became. My dad used to tell me, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me. And I took his advice in a lot of areas in life, but not when it came to women. It was, I was broken for years. And for that, I apologize. There's a lot of women that are going to see this and that have not had women, that have not had men apologize to them. So for all of us broken men and women out there who hurt other people, I say sorry because it's not personal, because I've been in love. I've been head over heels in love and still found a way to sabotage and mess up that relationship and relationships. So that's what this podcast is about. It's about ownership. The V principle, left side, wait, chasing, right side, wasting. In the middle is our alignment. That's where we have to operate from. When you're aligned, you're staying in the zone, you're staying on path, or you're focused towards your goals. And when you swerve to the left or swerve to the right, you get off track, you get out of that V zone. So the ultimate goal of the V principle is to keep us in that V zone. And it's not about saying we don't want desires. I'm not trying to preach abstinence. I'm just trying to preach responsibility, being accountable, making sure we're making the right choices that are not affecting our lives. And I'm sorry, I can't read the comments right now. I don't have on my reading glasses. I'll get back to them, but continue to comment. Um, but today, like I said, it's about finding out what this V trap cost me. And it cost me so much, when we mess with people's lives, waste their times, and give people false hope, we breadcrumb. What do you think is going to happen in our lives? Karma doesn't always come back the way you put it out. It comes back in a different form a lot of times. And so when you're going forward and you are making these decisions to go forward with somebody that you don't want to really be with, and you do it anyway, and you can look in their eyes and you can see they're split and they're going to be hurt, and you do it anyway, you're creating karma for yourself. And so for me, I've created a lot of emotional debt, and that emotional debt has turned into real life debt. Failed businesses, failed relationships, failed friendships. All those things happen because of irresponsibility. And I feel like it's my responsibility to share, because I want to try to prevent other young people from making those same mistakes. It's selfish. When we're chasing sex, it's not chasing sex. It's not about the sex. It's about validation. It's about that emptiness and that you feel like you're doing something. A lot of times I would have women because I wasn't successful in another area of my life. But if I had a rotation of women that I can talk to, that I could feel like I was busy, I felt like I was moving in life, but I was really caught up in that trap, in that race, that rat race that didn't lead to anywhere but brokenness. And so, alignment is the key. You have to put your alignment first, and that's how you stay in the B zone. For me, it's therapy, and I don't actually go to a therapist's office, but every morning I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm studying. I'm looking at myself. I'm holding up that mirror and I'm like, how can I be better? What am I doing? And it's been a lot of work, and I'm forever healing. I'm not healed. I'm forever healing, and that's what this journey is about. It's about healing. So as we move forward with this podcast, I want to talk about what the being in the V trap costs me, and what it does when you're not focused and aligned. And I can go back as early as basketball. When I played basketball at San Jose State, my coach, when I first got to California, it was incredible to me. I was already a young 20-year-old womanizer coming to California. Now you just put me in Cali where there's everything, all kind of backgrounds, girls. It's incredible out here. And so I was going crazy my first year. And at the end of the year, my coach pulled me in the office and he said that in order for me to go back to the program, I had to see sex therapy. And me being 20 years old, I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, what? Sex? Because I'm like, nah, I ain't doing that. So I transferred. But right back then, that coach was wise and he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. But instead of having the right guidance, I ignored that warning and I continued to move forward. So that was my first opportunity to do something about it that I ignored. But so I went on and I transferred. I had a great basketball career. I had opportunities, but I fumbled those opportunities. And it's only because I was too busy chasing. Too busy chasing women. I spent a lot of time a lot of times you can be focused on whatever goal it is that you have. And if you just focus on that and save that time chasing and wasting, what I mean? You can really get things more accomplished in life, but we spend a lot of time wasting energy, wasting time. And so basketball, I wasn't getting up those extra jump shots the way I should. I wasn't in the gym doing the extra things I needed to do to get to the next level. Yeah, I had the opportunity to go pro, but injuries and just emotional debt and not putting in the work and not staying focused really stopped me from getting to the next level. And it didn't stop there, and I want to make it clear that if you're a person that has been cheated on and or you dated somebody or dating somebody that just can't be faithful, doesn't know how to communicate, it's baggage that we're bringing into this relationship. Because when I was in college, I had my dream woman on the calendar. She was on my wall for months, and I ended up moving to California and meeting her. And when I met her, I was dating somebody else already. But instead of just ending what had going on, knowing that I met my dream girl, I dated them both. And that was a mistake, but it was a mistake that came from uh, just habit. I thought I can balance it. And by the time I tried to get out of it, it was too late. And I ruined a great foundation of an opportunity where God blessed me with, a manifestation of somebody that I wanted. And then I got into the record business and fumbled the ball there, managing an artist, signed as an artist. So many different things that happen. And we'll go on to that. We'll move forward with that. But right now, instead of me giving you everything all in this one podcast, I want to bring on a good friend of mine. You guys see him down at the bottom of the screen, patiently waiting. This is my good friend. We go back. To high school, and even before high school we met in elementary school, but we became good friends in high school when I moved back to Bristol, Pennsylvania. And I don't want to get too off track, but we have a lot of history from him. He's the reason why I hate snakes to this day, because he had a snake when he was younger in high school, and I used to go hang out with him after high school and watch him be creeped out watching him feed that snake. It was creepy. But Ray's my boy. He played football. I played basketball. We both ended up going to Bucks County Community College together, and he played. Ended up going to college to play football. Transferring out. Ended up transferring out here to California, and life happens. We grew apart, but our hearts always remain the same. And that's the thing about when you have solid friendships. When it's truly solid, it doesn't change. So I am so happy to have Ray Seifert on my podcast. When he hit me up to say he had a story, I was shocked, because I'm like, you? Because I remember Ray. Ray wasn't anything like me when I pulled out of to California. He wasn't anything like me. So for the fact that he had a story to share, when he told me the story, I was blown away. And that's what he's here today to talk about. How he got caught in the V trap. And we're not going to do it a traditional way where I ask him questions. I just want him to kind of open up and just feel free to talk. But before we do that, I want to let you guys know that Ray was living out in New Jersey, and as you see, you're not blind. This is a white man, and so the V trap. It doesn't care whether you're old, young, white, black. It doesn't matter. When you're a male, female, anybody can get caught in this trap. But when I found out Ray was caught in the V trap, I was shocked. And the fact that he wanted to talk about it, I spoke to him and his wife, his lovely wife, and I always respected her from afar, strong black woman. But when I heard their testimony and the fact that she was, I'm not going to get into it. I just think that she's an incredible woman, and it takes incredible people to work through trauma, to work through, healing, and it takes vulnerability and not telling half truths, whole truths. And that's the only way to fix things, and so it takes a special woman. So a shout out to your wife, Ray, if she's watching. I love her from afar. I'm so glad that you're blessed to have her in your life, man. But anyway, everybody, please help me welcome my boy, Ray Seifert. What's up, Ray? How you feeling tonight, brother?
I'm doing good, Sab. How you doing?
Man, I'm good, man.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah. This is and we're coming from two different perspectives. You just shared your testimony from a single person's perspective. My testimony comes from being married twice and getting caught up in some craziness in both marriages. And you talked about, and well, let me just correct one thing. I went to school for baseball, not football. However, I was good at both sports, but when I went, I didn't I didn't move forward like you did. So I failed. Some of my failures started even at that level when I didn't fulfill some of my potential and whatnot. You went much further than I did. So kudos to you for that. But saying that to say, me and Sab talked briefly before this, because 100 of my friends could have put this together, and I may or may not have been willing to talk about it. But the irony was, man, I got so pissed at Sab when we were about 19, 20 years old. He was dating this beautiful woman, and he was playing her out. And it bothered the hell out of me to see this happen. And I'm like, damn, this joker's really going to mess this up with this girl. She got it going on. She's good looking. She's down to earth, friendly. You name it, she was it. And I watched Sab play this girl out. And I remember getting to know this girl away from Sab. Something I didn't share with you earlier about this, Sab, was that I'm almost certain I even said to her something to the effect that, do you realize Sab's playing with you? He's playing games. Like I had to really start and think about that history of it. And so the irony was, I was pissed at Sab on how he was treating this girl, and then I did the same thing for the next 30 years of my life. I, much like Sab, I came from a broken family, and I've always wanted to have that mother-father figure and in the same household. And I wanted a big family. One of my closest friends from Bristol, huge family, married, mother, father there. I idolized that family. And I said, that's what I want. And somehow, some way, I came to get introduced to a beautiful woman that I ended up marrying, who was that same exact family, big Catholic family, mother, father in the picture. But I married her for the wrong reasons. I married her because of her family and her and how what I perceived to be what would be happiness. And early on, we grew apart. And instead of addressing the issues, I started doing my thing on the side. And I didn't have no regrets, no ill will about it. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel no remorse. I just did my thing. And I was seeking happiness, but yet not addressing the home front. And whenever for the longest time, my wife never suspected anything, never caught me out there, never nothing. And I'm thinking like, man, she's never going to catch me. And there was times she caught me with stuff and I would deny it. She would just let it go and would never bring it up again. And the irony was, so from that, whenever we'd have a discussion, a blowout, an argument, she would ask me, what is it you want? Instead of telling the truth, I would say, I just want to be happy. And happy for me was trying to find someone that completed me in a way that I was looking for. So instead of addressing it, I would just say, I want to be happy. And I would continue to go down this road of being in an unhappy marriage, not addressing it, and continue to do my thing with people. I met some amazing women that came into my life for the wrong reasons. There was women I said, damn, I wish I could marry this woman. I wish I could be with that woman. I met some incredible, incredible women. But the sad reality was I was playing a game with them too because I knew I wasn't ready to leave my marriage, even though I wasn't happy. So Sab talked about what he lost, and what I ended up losing was my house because the divorce ultimately led to us foreclosing on our house. I lost a part of my pension. Me and my ex-wife, we get along. I'm not one of them ones that'll sit there and badmouth my ex. She's a wonderful, incredible person, and I've always said that. And her family was incredible, but it wasn't what I wanted. And instead of me just being able to man up to it, I lost a part of the pension, lost my house, lost everything. And from that, jumped into an immediate relationship after that where I promised never to do anything again, and I'm going to change how I approach things. And the person that I fell in love with and got engaged to shortly after being divorced, not giving myself any time to heal and really dig deep into myself, she cheated on me. and I found out by mistake, and it devastated me, not because she cheated, but because our relationship was over. Like, she didn't want to revisit. She was worried that I would always hold it against her. And I looked at it from like, wow, this was part of my karma. I met someone that I wanted to be with. I envisioned being married. We got engaged, lived together, and she cheated on me. And it was pretty interesting. And that turned my world upside down. The irony is we remained living together through the course of the breakup because she had a young child that was in school, and where we were living just made sense. We'd finish out the school year just to keep her daughter in the same school. I didn't waste no time. I got right online, started looking for somebody. And my wife today is who I met while I was still living with someone I was actually broken up with and still dealing with the pieces of a divorce, and now a relationship that had fallen apart. And so again, I met a woman that this time met someone that I was looking for, that met all the criteria that I was looking for. You name it that I was looking for, she had it. In addition to being a very confident, successful person, she herself was just coming out of bad relationships, but she was also looking for what she felt was a safer option based on her previous bad experiences. People with thug backgrounds or just weren't compatible to her and maybe weren't doing the right thing. When she found me, for her it was a validation that she could find a safe outlet and still find what she was looking for. And through the course of that, I stepped out on that marriage. And not one time, not two times, not three times, 4 or 5 times. And and it was through the course of, we've been together now for 15 years. My first wife didn't suspect anything for years. Eventually, she caught me, and that's what led to the divorce. My wife here had no idea that I was even capable of what I was doing or that I was doing anything, because it appeared as though we had a healthy marriage. And I still continue to test the waters in different ways. Anytime there was something wrong in the marriage, that was my chink in the armor to say, let me look for something better and something. I'm ready to move on, but I'm not ready to address the marriage. Giving false hopes to people that I met, fell in love with in different aspects, or had a lot of care for, kept playing the game. So it led me to this past year. So this is the irony of this thing that Sab's putting out there, because even though I have a lot of baggage, a lot of history, the biggest turmoil took place this past year. I met someone that I started connecting with, and we had a full-fledged relationship going on where I was interacting damn near every day of the week on some level. And I didn't get caught. I actually manned up and told my wife, because I recognized that enough is enough is enough. I either got to fix my marriage, fix what's going on, or I got to move on, and and whether to be with this person or however it's going to play out. But I couldn't play the game anymore. When I told my wife, she was devastated. It got tense for a while, but through her beliefs in God, the church, faith, and what she believed in us, she wanted to work it out. And I didn't know if I wanted to work it out or not. And I was really torn. So part of my karma was, now I met someone that I felt like there was a connection greater than I can explain. My wife couldn't understand it, but yet here I had this wife that wanted to work it out if possible, that I still loved, still cared for, and was still. So now I'm going back and forth. So part of my karma was, what do you do? And I had to make a decision. And I'm going to be very open. There's a lot of people I see online that are friends, family, friends of hers. I even endured a pregnancy scare, and that really tested our marriage and our faith, because what woman's going to hang around for someone that may have possibly got someone else pregnant, let alone trying to figure out if you're going to work through your marriage? So what I learned was, my whole life, the past 30, 40 years of doing what I wanted to do, doing it how I did it on my terms, I always pointed the blame at the person I was with, or made excuses as to what the issue was. It starts with taking accountability from your end. You got to look yourself in the mirror and say, what are you bringing to the table? If you're not happy, you got to address it, but address it knowing that you're part of the problem, if not even the bigger part of the problem. It's not always the other person. I've had a lot of friends that I've heard, we all have probably friends, family, or whatever, that have ended up in divorce, and you hear them badmouth the other person. I'll never badmouth my ex-wife. If me and my wife today was to separate, I would never badmouth her. I've been blessed to have two wonderful women that I'm fortunate to marry, and I potentially could have screwed up both. I screwed up one, and on the cusp of screwing up another one, trying to figure that out. So it took me taking a deep dive over the past year, looking in the mirror and not looking at what she was doing to impact me, but looking what I was doing to create issues on my end that could be prevented or worked through, because we both promised each other communication was the key to making it work. She has a big belief in faith in God, as I do, but she's definitely versed on that end of things. I've done everything under the sun, from going to church to even getting spiritual readings, trying to figure out myself. Learned a lot about myself in the last year by looking in the mirror, owning my actions, not blaming anybody else but myself. But there's something that me and Sab talked about off air that I don't think he brought up again yet, but I think is another big part of it, is closing doors. I have a lot of doors that are still open. And I seen one name pop up of someone that I have history with from the past. I've never closed a door on someone that I had a relationship with. And that's not healthy, because if you're trying to make your marriage work, and if you have open doors on any level, you got to figure out what it is you want. Because if you don't close those doors, that temptation is going to be there the minute you have a chink in the armor, you have a problem, you're not happy, you feel disillusioned. it's easy to resort back to someone that you know that has feelings for you and vice versa on some level at some point in time.
Yeah.
So if you're not closing doors, then you're still not holding yourself accountable for your actions, and you're still
Yeah.
misleading both people, the
Yeah.
person that's hoping to have that opportunity, as well as the person that you're with.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me 1 second, Ray. Number one, man, I'll give you, man, it's so vulnerable for you to share that, man, because most people are gonna look at us sharing our story and be judgmental. And I want to address somebody in because I only see one comment, Christine. I don't really know you personally, but could you please refrain from cursing? And this podcast is thing we're doing to trying to heal, not trying to hurt, not trying to blame. We're trying to heal, and it takes being vulnerable to try to heal. Nobody's perfect. All right, I'm sorry that you've been hurt, but please refrain from cursing. And if you want to request to come on here and have a conversation that is going to move this forward, we're not going against each other. We're trying to be honest so we can heal ourselves and heal each other. So please refrain from all of the venting and the negativity on here, okay? Yes, we haven't recovered. We are recovering. It's a process, and this is the process. Everybody has different imprints. So Ray, I'm emotional as I hear you sharing your story because I know you. You're a great guy, and great people make mistakes. Great people are broken, and great people are wearing invisible backpacks, carrying things. And so ultimately, that's what this podcast is about. Not just staying broken. It's about being accountable. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to address
No,
the
no,
young lady.
no. And I've been reading some of her comments. Obviously, she's I guess she's embracing this forum, and yeah, I mean, obviously the cursing was of nothing negative in nature, but I get what
No,
you're
I just don't
saying.
want. I just don't want cursing because they'll cut it off. They'll shut it
We'll
off.
shut
And I
it
just
down. Right, 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 right.
I want to keep this positive. There was somebody else, Ray, who had a podcast, and I'm not going to mention this person's name, but he became so popular, and it just creeped me out. How he was just address and talk about women, and I just saw a lot of fighting back and forth, and that's what I don't want in this podcast. I don't care if 10 people watch, a million people watch. I still want to keep it where we can learn and we can
Yeah,
heal, we
yeah.
can learn from each other, and we can be honest. That's all, and
Oh,
that's
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that I've learned is that, when we're young, we all think we have it figured out. I think most people, it never works when they get married or have a serious relationship at a young age because they haven't experienced life. And there's some people, we were friends and grew up with a couple that have been together now for over 40 years since high school. I think it's amazing. And you know what? I would hopefully maybe down the road they'd be receptive to coming on to sharing what got them through 40 years from high school till now of being a married couple. That's a testimony in itself. But if you're jumping into something serious at a young age, you either got to be committed to what you're getting involved in, or be real with the person as to what your wants are and what your expectations are, and don't mislead. I learned a lot from my first marriage and said what I would not do again, and I did it again, and that's because I wasn't holding myself accountable.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about it, when you not just not holding yourself accountable, once you hold yourself accountable, then you have to be responsible and follow up and actually and do the work daily because it's not what we know, it's what we practice, because if we just say, okay, I know I shouldn't be this type of person, I'm not gonna be this type of person anymore. But if you're not waking up every day being intentional about, what, let me be intentional with my actions and my behaviors, and let me not repeat the cycles. If these are some of the same patterns that I've been doing and I find myself doing them, then I'm not really practicing my alignment. So alignment is sometimes realigning and getting yourself right on the right track. And
Yeah.
I want to be present and see if you feel like you want to come in and you have something to say, and you want to be a part of this conversation. I want to open it up to others if you want to join our conversation before we close it out. But Ray, man, I think it's so incredible, and I'm praying for you and wifey, man. I'm praying for you. What have you been doing right now? Like, what has been, I know you've been vulnerable, you've been transparent with her, and I know that. What are you doing to move forward? And right now,
uh, Learning from the mistakes,
hmm
owning them, and talking about it. We went to therapy. We have daily conversations. My wife does check-ins more so than I do with her, but I mean, we do communicate. We communicated great early in our marriage. And then in the middle, like a lot of people, we got into a lull where we weren't communicating as much. I'll say this. I'm going to share something from a marital point, and it applies for relationships, but marriage is definitely important. My wife does something that helped me be able to tell her, which she did help me to reveal what I was doing. So she, instead of always talking about things, whenever we had an issue or she wanted to share something with me, she took the time to write a letter. And over the years, she's written me 4 or 5, maybe more letters, uh, venting. And it's easy because when you have a conversation or an argument or a discussion, it's easy to lose sight of who said what or how it was said or what was meant. The best thing she could have ever did was put something on paper. And when I revealed to her what was going on my end, I thankfully held on to all those letters. And they weren't like all at the same time frame. There was letters from years apart. But I held on to each and every one of those letters, and I was able to go through those letters and have a clear understanding of what we were talking about at that time, or a better understanding of what the argument was or what was going on, because at various times we talked about marital issues and concerns and we worked through it. I was able to use those letters to convey some of my feelings as to what I was thinking at those times and where it took me. So one thing I
Yeah.
can tell, if someone's looking for some advice, don't be scared to put something on paper or an email, something you can hold on to, you can reference, because it's easier to remember when you can read the actual words that you were thinking, feeling, or expressing.
Wow. And I have to. This may be a shameless plug, but I can't ignore it. Because you're talking my language right now. You're speaking my love language actually, and it's really I'm a read, write learner. And my cousin Ken and I, we have another partner. We have an app, and I want you and your wife to test it out because it's called Tool Togetherness, and it's a relationship app that gives couples the tools to stay together. And for me, the reason why I created that app because when I came up with that app, I was running a business, and the owners of the company were out of the country, and they were really big advocates on communication and every part of it. Because if I didn't do one thing, it affected something else, and so they would get on my case. But I thought about, you know what, I need to create an app like this because relationships be not what's more important than your relationship with your wife, your significant other. You need to be able to communicate with them. And like you, I forget stuff, like I don't be tripping on stuff like in past relationships, when I would get into arguments or discussions, I would just kind of listen because I was using, but I had my thoughts or feelings. And if I didn't say nothing then, I would forget about it, And so this app, Togetherness, it's a way to kind of like when as I'm gonna send you and your wife's to test it. I'm gonna send you guys both an email when we hang up so you guys can test that. But you link up and you do daily reports how you check in the morning, you check in the evening how I'm feeling, and then at the end of the week you have a meeting. But when your wife sees your reports, she sees your reports, but there's also a part that's set for journaling, and I think that's the key, right? Journaling, which your
Yeah,
wife did. So you can journal and you don't save it right away, but you share it because a lot of times you might be frustrated, you might, oh, this is what I'm, and you'll think about it, and it's not the right time to talk, and then it'll slip your mind. So this will allow you to journal that, save it, and then share it when you're ready to share it. And that's how, because the most important thing I think is communication and respect. I think without communication, your relationship is going to fail. It's going to fail. So the fact that your wife was doing that and you shared that tool, that is a tool. Don't let things get too far out of control. You got to communicate, and it takes two to tango. So if you got a person, figure out how they like to communicate best. And if they're not willing to do the work, this is my thing. I don't believe in like, staying with somebody just because you're married. Let me be honest. Or staying with somebody just because you have history, because you have kids. If you're not willing, two people aren't willing to do the work, then it's not going to work. Two people have to be committed to doing the work. And I'm sure somebody gets offended. Sure, men, we make a mistake, and so it's up to but we both have to be able to do the work. So the fact that you're willing to do the work is
100%.
that's the key.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do the work, what does your wife have to hold on to? So you have to be willing to do the work, and so does she, and she's incredible, man. A lot of women might watch this show and hear your history and be like, "What the heck is she doing to him?" And that's on them. That's
Please,
somebody
yeah,
spectating.
and again, I've dated many different races. My first wife was white. My wife now is black. And there's certain stereotypes that are vaguely or some, loosely have some truth to it. There's nothing harder than trying to tell a powerful, successful alpha woman who grew up in the hood. Like she is, it's not like she just is naive to what goes on in the world. To be able to man up and tell her what I was doing, man, listen, that was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But I took pride in it, and it doesn't mean it doesn't exonerate me from anything I did. But it allowed me. I didn't want. I'd rather her hear it from me than me get caught and me try to talk my way out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And Christine makes a good point right now. She says studies also show that women cheat more than men in 2026. And I think that may have happened. This is just randomly right off the cuff because women got tired of being cheated on. So there's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it to you, so you don't do it to me. And that's kind of what happens in relationships. I feel like
Yeah,
people get frustrated, tired of being. You know what? I'm not gonna be a sucker in this relationship. So that energy is transferred, and then you become the person that you resent. And that's why we got to have these conversations. That's what this podcast is about, because we have to break the cycle. I know
yeah,
Christy made a great comment earlier also. She said it's important to own it and take accountability, because if you don't, our children are watching. I've been a single father for 15 years, and I haven't really had a relationship that my daughters could see, because I didn't want to model anything broken for them, because I know I was broken. So I'm not going to bring anybody in their life knowing how I was. So I was strategic. That's one thing I'm proud of. I kept women away from my daughter. And so I didn't let that fold over. I'd rather them see me alone, happy, and doing the work than struggling in relationships and hurting women, because I do value women. I just was broken. I am still broken. I'm healing. And that's what this
well,
whole thing
so
is about.
Sab, I'm glad you just said what you just said about you're still broken. So when my wife does her check-ins, she would say, how are you? How are things going? And she asked me not too long ago, has it been hard? And I compared it to something. Sometimes I make an analogy that may not hit or it may not seem appropriate, but I said to her, it's like being a crackhead living next to a crack house, meaning that temptation's always there. Once you have opened that Pandora's box of doing what you do, now you're trying to address it and become a better person. It doesn't change overnight. It doesn't go away overnight. When you have doors open or feelings because you've created them, unfortunately, you now have to work through it, but you got to want to do it. Like a person going to Alcoholics Anonymous, they have to say they're an alcoholic. 100 people could tell them that, but unless they're willing to own up to it, no one's going to achieve. No one's going to succeed in helping them change until they change themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, that Alcoholics Anonymous is the perfect analogy, because I don't want, I'm not getting out here, I'm not when I wrote this book, I didn't write this book from above anybody. I wrote this book from a place of I'm right here still. I'm still doing the work. I am not healed. I'm healing. And I think that's the key. It's not what we know, it's what we practice. You got to be humble enough to continue to do the practice. And as I continue to study in life, that's what it keeps reminding me. Keep doing the work. Keep doing the work. You're not out of the water, because every day is a new day. Every moment could be a new moment, and you're only as aligned as you are when something presents themselves. There's I talk about it in the book. A lot of people who didn't take the path that I took or that you took, it's easy to be on the sideline and say, how could you do this? How could you do that? But when you had certain options, it made things different. Like walking in, you don't know what other people are walking in, the shoes that they're walking in. When it's a different perspective, and this is not a bragging thing, but being an athlete, being in a certain community and living in a certain community, if you were kind of like the chosen one, then you don't have to chase. Sometimes when it's coming to you, you take it for granted and you don't respect it, and it loses its value when you don't have to work for something. And when you do that, that's what I did, and I hate the fact that I took that path, but I don't regret it, because as ugly and as beautiful this conversation is that we're having right now, it's what's necessary. And I wanted to keep going. I want people who are watching this to really like share this, to really, to get a part of this movement. If you want to be on the show, please email me, send me a text message or DM me, and tell me that you want to share your story. And if you want to join in right now, just request to join Ray and I Speak Live. If you have any questions, if you have anything that happened to you in the past and you just want to get some type of clarity or a different perspective, ask us. But Ray, man, I'm really, 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 really proud of you, man. I'm really proud of you, man. Yeah, it took a lot for both of us.
I appreciate it. And like I said, 100 of my friends could have put this together, and I may or may not have been receptive to sharing. It was the connection of how I viewed you as a young player And then not even realizing I did the same damn thing for years and years and years. And from a from being on a married standpoint while you were doing it. So I judged you, but yet did the same damn thing.
No, but this is okay, man, and I don't blame you for judging me because you know you are my boy, and I know you're not the only one. You know, I had a lot of friends in the past looking like, what the heck is wrong with you, man? When is enough? When is enough enough? She's amazing, but to me, when you're broken and you just keep on going, you know, like I didn't have success in my life in other areas where you know that's why they say you see a lot of men who don't have shit. They're like the players because that's their success in life, you know, accomplishing women when you're not, when you have bad credit, when you don't have a, when you don't own stuff, when you're in debt, when you're doing these things, but you can really pull this person and people are looking at those guys like they're the man. But at the end of the day, they're going home empty. I was going home empty, you know, and that's not a cool place to be. And that's why I encourage young men and women to stay off of that V trap. It's okay to slip, but don't fall. You know what I mean? And make sure you are walking in alignment and towards your purpose. I see you have
Yeah,
something you want to say.
yeah, and so the same thing, like you said, yours was primarily sex driven, correct?
Yeah, sex and validation.
Primarily,
Sex.
right, right. So for me, it wasn't that. Although don't get it twisted, I was love what was coming with it. Mine wasn't sex driven and validation. I was ultimately always trying to seek out someone that I felt was my true compatible soulmate or what I was looking for when I started breaking down what was important to me. But I was going about it all wrong because you don't look for someone else when you're married. You don't look for someone else when you're in a alleged one-on-one relationship. You either work through it or share with that person that, listen, we're not compatible. It's not working. We're going to waste each other's time. But instead, I was trying to find that one while I was still with someone and knowing that there was a good likelihood that I wasn't leaving that person anytime soon. So I really had a bizarre mindset.
Yeah, and I understand how it's easy to get caught up in that, man. Easy to get, like I said, no judgment. I totally understand that. Um, Anybody want to chime in? Let me see if I can randomly bring in somebody before I close this out. I want to keep this. 727. Oh my gosh, what an angel number! And I look on there who's watching, and I see mostly women watching, and that's a beautiful thing because yeah, share it with the men, you know, because young men, we need to hear this because you will go on in life breaking hearts and sabotaging your own life, you know, and it comes back to you. So just do the work. You know, my cousin, you know, hashtag do the work. You got to do the work. Be honest with yourself. Let go of that ego. Let go of that need for validation, you know. And Ray said something really important. He was trying to look for like the perfect, you know, we try to do that. And a lot of people say, you know, you meet somebody early on and it doesn't work out. So then you spend the rest of your life trying to find a person that was just like that person. And the bottom line is, it's not about that. It's not about just being just like that person. I understand there's in relationship, there are the three C's. You need to be compatible, you need to have connection, and you need to have chemistry. And if one of those things aren't there, the relationship's not going to work. But you don't go looking for a relationship. You become what you attract a relationship. You know, you become the right person. You don't look for the right person. So at the end of the day, Ray, that's what this is all about, man. It's about
Yeah,
not us looking for the right person. It's about us becoming the right person. And that's
one. That's the best way. You put it the best way possible.
yeah.
Again, owning your actions and becoming the best person possible. Yeah, is you couldn't have said it any better.
That's it, guys. So I want to end this one with one of my favorite quotes from The Alchemist. When we become better than who we are, everything around us becomes better. When we become better than who we are, everything around us becomes better. And then also, do not look for the right person, become the right person. Don't settle. We're going to have different conversations on this podcast. We're going to talk about narcissism. I know people will hate that word, but you know what? I've been following, you know, people with, you know, I've been following Dr. Romney, and I wrote a book on narcissism. And you know, because I'm just a student of life, I love healing, and in this healing process I love sharing. And this podcast is not a podcast, it's not just about this book, it's about the movement. It's about the movement. So you guys make sure you follow me on the V Principle on Instagram. The book is available on Amazon. Make sure you follow me and get this book, and just continue to share this. And if you're hearing this, you do better, you know. And if you're, I don't care if you're a man or you're a woman, get out of that V trap. You know, you stay in that V zone. You're aligned, but you got to be intentional with your alignment. Do the work every day. It's not what you know, it's what you practice, what you practice. Once again, thank you for watching the V Principle. I'm your host, Ivory Hunter, and thank you to my friend, my brother Ray Seifert for coming on the show and really sharing. And thank his wife for just allowing him to tell her story and for her to be vulnerable, because it's both of them being vulnerable, because people naturally judge but forget the judges, the ownership, the communication, the connection. I pray that you guys have many more years together. And Ray, continue doing the work, brother. Continue doing the work. And you know, I love you, man.
Keep doing what you do. I love you too.
All right, brother.
All
Peace.
right,
Have
brother.
a great day,
See you.
guys. All right,
Bye.
thank you.